Memphis, Tennessee, Graceland. August 16th, 1977, 3:30 p.m. Elvis Presley has just been found dead in his bathroom. As paramedics work frantically to revive the king of rock and roll, something else is happening in the basement of Graceland. Something that will remain secret for the next 47 years. Charlie Hodge, Elvis's closest friend and spiritual confidant, is standing in front of a massive steel vault built into the foundation of the mansion. The vault is marked with a simple sign, "Personal, do not open." Inside this vault are 200 of the most powerful songs ever recorded. 200 gospel masterpieces that Elvis created over 20 years. 200 prayers set to music that were never meant for human ears, except God's. This is the story of Elvis's hidden gospel empire. The spiritual legacy he kept secret from the world. The music he considered too holy to sell, too personal to perform, and too powerful for fame to touch. But to understand why Elvis hid these songs, we need to go back to the beginning. To understand not just the music, but the man who created it when no one was watching. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Faith. January 8, 1935. Tupelo, Mississippi. Elvis Aaron Presley is born into a world of poverty, but also into a world of profound faith. His first musical memories aren't of country music or blues. They're of gospel songs sung in the East Tupelo Assembly of God Church. Gladys Presley, Elvis's mother, takes her son to church 3 times a week. Not because she has to, but because the music there is the only thing that makes their struggles bearable. Young Elvis sits in those wooden pews, absorbing hymns that will stay with him for the rest of his life. How great thou art. He knows just what I need. Peace in the valley. These aren't just songs to Elvis. They're lifelines. They're proof that God exists and that he cares about poor people from Mississippi. When Elvis is 11 years old, something happens that will define his relationship with gospel music forever. His mother is sick with hepatitis, lying in bed for weeks, too weak to get up. Elvis sits beside her bed and sings Old Shep and Sweet Hour of Prayer. As he sings, his mother's breathing becomes easier. The pain leaves her face. "Elvis, honey," Gladys whispers, "when you sing gospel, something happens. The room changes. God comes down and sits with us." That moment plants a seed in Elvis's heart. Gospel music isn't just music, it's medicine, it's miracle, it's a direct connection to the divine. Chapter 2, The Secret Sessions begin. 1957, Sun Records, Memphis. Elvis is 22 years old and already a global phenomenon. That's Alright has changed music forever. Heartbreak Hotel has made him rich. Hound Dog has made him controversial. But late at night, when the recording sessions are officially over, Elvis stays behind. Sam Phillips, the owner of Sun Records, has gone home. The other musicians have left, but Elvis remains, sitting at the piano, playing the songs that really matter to him. Marion Kaiska, Sam Phillips's assistant, is working late one night when she hears something coming from Studio A. A voice so pure, so spiritual, so unlike the rock and roll Elvis that it stops her in her tracks. She creeps closer to the studio and listens through the door. Elvis is singing, "Precious Lord, Take My Hand," but not like any version she's ever heard. This version is raw, personal, desperate, like Elvis is actually talking to God, pleading with him for guidance. Marion quietly turns on the recording equipment. She doesn't know why, but she knows this needs to be captured. That recording becomes the first of what will eventually be 200 hidden gospel songs. Chapter 3, The Midnight Gospel Sessions, 1958, 1965, various recording studios, Memphis, Nashville, Los Angeles. As Elvis's fame grows, so does his need for spiritual grounding. The parties, the pills, the pressure of being Elvis Presley are eating him alive. The only thing that keeps him sane is gospel music. But these aren't casual jam sessions. These are intense, spiritual experiences that happen between midnight and dawn, when the regular world is asleep and Elvis can connect with something higher. The pattern is always the same. After official recording sessions, after concerts, after movie shoots, Elvis will gather a small group of musicians who understand what he's trying to do. Charlie Hodge on guitar, DJ Fontana on drums, the Jordanaires for harmonies, sometimes Scotty Moore, sometimes just Elvis alone at a piano. They'll start with a traditional hymn, How Great Thou Art, or He Touched Me. But then something magical happens. Elvis begins to improvise. He starts adding verses, changing melodies, personalizing the songs, until they become something entirely new. Jesus, I Need You Tonight, Elvis sings during one session in 1962. Not because I'm famous, not because I'm rich, but because I'm lost. Show me the way home. The musicians around him start crying, not because the music is sad, but because it's so honest, so vulnerable, so unlike anything the world sees of Elvis Presley. Red West, one of Elvis's bodyguards, is present for many of these sessions. Years later, he'll describe them as the most spiritual experiences I ever had. Elvis wasn't performing, he was praying out loud, and we were lucky enough to witness it. Chapter 4, The Healing Power, 1963. A private hospital room in Memphis. Johnny Bragg, a member of the Jordanaires, is dying of cancer. He's only 34 years old, with a wife and 2 young children. The doctors have given him weeks to live. Elvis hears about Johnny's condition and shows up at the hospital at 2 a.m. He's carrying a guitar and a small tape recorder. Johnny, Elvis says, sitting beside his friend's bed, I've got something for you. Something I've never shared with anyone. Elvis plays a tape from one of his midnight gospel sessions, a song called Valley of Healing, which Elvis wrote during his own dark period in 1961. The song is about walking through the shadow of death and finding God's light on the other side. As Johnny listens, something remarkable happens. His breathing becomes easier. His pain seems to lessen. He closes his eyes, and tears stream down his face. Elvis, Johnny whispers, I can see it, the valley, and there's light at the end. Johnny Bragg lives for 6 more months, not weeks, months, months. Months he spends with his family, months he gets to see his children grow. When he finally passes, his last words are about Elvis's song and how it gave him peace. This isn't an isolated incident. Throughout the 1960s, Elvis quietly shares his gospel recordings with people who are suffering, cancer patients, grieving families, lost souls, struggling with addiction, always in private, always as gifts, never for money. Charlie Hodgins keeps a journal of these moments. By 1967, he's documented over 50 cases where Elvis's hidden gospel songs provided comfort, healing, or peace to people in their darkest hours. Elvis knew these songs had power, Charlie writes. Not the power to make money or fame, but the power to heal, and he protected that power like it was sacred. Because to him it was. Chapter 5, The Vatican Connection, 1965. A secret meeting that changed everything. Cardinal Giuseppe Caprio, representing Pope Paul VI, travels to Memphis under an assumed name. His mission, to meet with Elvis Presley about his gospel recordings. How did the Vatican learn about Elvis's hidden spiritual music? Through Father William Glynn, an American priest who had been present at one of Elvis's private gospel sessions in 1964. Father Glynn was so moved by what he heard that he wrote to Rome, describing Elvis as possibly the most spiritually gifted musician of our time. The meeting takes place in the basement of Graceland, in the same room where Elvis records his gospel songs. Cardinal Caprio, a man who has heard the finest church music in the world, listens to Elvis perform Ave Maria in a style that blends traditional Latin with gospel soul. When the song ends, Cardinal Caprio is weeping. Mr. Presley, he says in broken English, the Holy Father must hear this. Will you consider sharing these gifts with the church? Elvis's response shocks everyone in the room. Your Eminence, Elvis says, these songs aren't mine to give. They belong to God. I'm just the vessel. If God wants the church to have them, he'll make that clear. Until then, they stay between him and me. Cardinal Caprio reports back to Rome that Elvis Presley is a deeply spiritual man who understands the sacred nature of his gift better than many ordained priests. The Pope sends Elvis a personal letter, blessing his work and acknowledging the divine spark in his music. Elvis frames the letter but never publicizes it. Like his gospel recordings, it remains a private treasure. Chapter 6, The Night Gospel, almost went public. 1968 comeback special is being planned. NBC executives want Elvis to prove he's still relevant.
They want rock and roll, leather, sex appeal, but Elvis has a different idea. I want to do a gospel segment, Elvis tells producer Steve Binder. Real gospel, not performance gospel, the kind I do at midnight when nobody's watching. Binder is intrigued. Show me. Elvis sits at a piano in the NBC studios and performs How Great Thou Art, the way he sings it in his private sessions. Vulnerable, personal, transcendent. The studio falls silent. When he finishes, there isn't a dry eye in the room. Elvis, Binder says, that's the most powerful performance I've ever witnessed. We have to include it. But when they film the actual special, something changes. The network executives, the sponsors, the commercial pressures all push Elvis back toward his public persona. The gospel segment becomes a traditional performance rather than the spiritual experience Elvis had envisioned. After the taping, Elvis is devastated. Charlie, he tells his friend, I tried to share the real stuff, but they turned it into just another show. That's why I keep the deep gospel private. The moment you put it on television, it stops being sacred and becomes entertainment. That night, Elvis returns to Graceland and records 10 new gospel songs in his basement studio. More personal, more spiritual, more hidden than ever before. Chapter 7, The Breakdown and the Breakthrough. Elvis is at his lowest point. The divorce from Priscilla is finalized. His pill addiction is spiraling out of control. He's gained weight, lost confidence, and questions whether his life has any meaning. On a particularly dark night in October 1973, Elvis locks himself in his basement studio with nothing but a piano and a tape recorder. What happens next produces what many consider the most spiritually powerful recordings of his entire life. For 6 hours straight, Elvis pours his heart out in song. He sings about addiction, about loneliness, about feeling like a fraud. He questions God, argues with him, pleads with him. Then, around 6 a.m., something shifts. Elvis begins singing Amazing Grace, but not as a hymn, as a confession, as a conversation with God about grace, forgiveness, and redemption. His voice cracks, breaks, rebuilds itself. By the end of the song, Elvis is sobbing. The recording is so intense that Charlie Hodge, who discovers it the next day, can barely listen to the whole thing. It's too personal, too raw, too sacred for human ears. This isn't music, Charlie writes in his journal. This is a man's soul laid bare before his creator. Elvis titles the recording, The Long Night of the Soul, and locks it in his vault, with instructions that it never be played for anyone else, not even him. That recording session marks a turning point. Elvis's relationship with his hidden gospel empire deepens. These songs become his lifeline, his therapy, his direct connection to God. Chapter 8, The Billy Graham Connection, 1975. Reverend Billy Graham, the world's most famous evangelist, requests a private meeting with Elvis. Graham has heard rumors about Elvis's gospel recordings and wants to understand the spiritual life of America's most famous entertainer. The meeting takes place at Graceland on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Elvis is nervous. This is Billy Graham after all, but he agrees to share some of his hidden gospel music. Elvis plays 3 songs, Valley of the Shadow, Jesus My Only Friend, and a stunning version of Just As I Am that he recorded the previous month. Billy Graham listens with his eyes closed, his hands folded in prayer. When the music stops, he looks at Elvis with tears in his eyes. Son, Graham says, you have been blessed with a gift that goes beyond entertainment. This music could bring thousands to Christ. Reverend, Elvis replies, that's exactly why I keep it private. The moment I turn it into a ministry, it becomes about me instead of about God. These songs work because they're honest, not because they're famous. Billy Graham understands. He spends the rest of the afternoon discussing faith, music, and ministry with Elvis. When he leaves, he tells his assistant, I just met one of the most spiritual men in America, and the world doesn't even know it. Chapter 9, The International Underground, 1976. Elvis's hidden gospel recordings have begun to circulate in ways he never intended. Not commercially, but spiritually. Bootleg copies of some sessions have made their way to missionaries around the world. A recording of Elvis singing How Great Thou Art in his basement style is being used in underground churches in communist countries. A version of Peace in the Valley, recorded during Elvis's 1974 spiritual crisis, is bringing comfort to soldiers in Vietnam. Elvis discovers this through a letter from a missionary in Southeast Asia. Dear Mr. Presley, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I had to write. We have a recording of you singing Blessed Assurance that someone gave us. We don't know where it came from, but we play it for villagers who have lost everything to war. When they hear your voice singing about being blessed and assured, something happens. Hope returns. Faith grows. Lives change. Thank you for this gift, even if you never intended for us to have it. Elvis is amazed and terrified. His private songs are having the impact he always hoped for, but in ways he never planned. He calls Charlie Hodge into his study. Charlie, Elvis says, if these recordings are helping people, maybe I'm supposed to share them. Maybe I'm being selfish by keeping them locked up. Charlie, who has witnessed the power of these songs for nearly 20 years, gives Elvis advice that will shape the rest of his life. Elvis, he says, you're not ready to share them all, but maybe you could let a few more out, carefully, to the right people. Let God guide you. Elvis spends the next year deciding which songs are ready for the world, and which must remain secret forever. Chapter 10, The Final Recordings, 1977, Elvis's last months. He knows he's dying. The pills, the pressure, the pain of being Elvis Presley are finally winning, but he has one final gift to give to his hidden gospel empire. Between January and July 1977, Elvis records 25 more gospel songs, but these aren't like his previous recordings. These are goodbye songs. Songs about going home, about meeting Jesus, about being free from the burden of fame. The most powerful of these final recordings is When I Cross Over, a song Elvis writes himself about leaving this world behind. When I cross over to the other side, when I leave this tired body behind, when I stand before the throne of grace, I won't be Elvis anymore. I'll just be a soul who tried to sing your praise. Elvis records this song on August 10, 1977. Charlie Hodge is the only witness to this final session. He later describes it as Elvis saying goodbye not just to the world, but to the voice that made him famous. He sang those final songs like he was already halfway to heaven. Chapter 11, The Vault Sealed, August 16, 1977. 4 p.m. Elvis is dead. Within hours, Graceland is swarming with reporters, lawyers, estate managers, and curiosity seekers. But Charlie Hodge has a mission. Following instructions Elvis gave him months earlier, Charlie seals the basement studio and the vault containing the 200 gospel recordings. He installs additional locks, changes the access codes, and posts a sign that Elvis had prepared. Personal, Dinote open, by order of Elvis Aaron Presley. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, asks Charlie about the basement. There are things down there, Charlie explains, that Elvis wanted protected forever. Music that was between him and God. He made me promise to keep it safe. Vernon respects his son's wishes. The vault remains sealed. But Charlie isn't the only one who knows about the recordings. Over the next few days, several people approach him about the secret gospel songs. Record executives, music historians, religious leaders, all wanting access to Elvis's hidden spiritual treasure. Charlie turns them all away. Elvis sang those songs for an audience of one. He tells them, that's where they belong.
Chapter 12, The Legend Grows, 1978-1990. The rumors about Elvis's hidden gospel recordings spread throughout the music industry. Stories become legends. Legends become myths. Some claim the recordings contain prophecies about the future of music. Others believe they have actual healing powers. A few insist that Elvis channeled divine messages through these songs. Charlie Hodge, now the sole guardian of this secret, is approached hundreds of times by people wanting access to the vault. Offers reach into the millions of dollars. Religious organizations promise to use the recordings to spread faith around the world. Charlie refuses everyone. In 1982, he gives one interview about the recordings to a religious magazine. People ask me why I won't release these songs. They say Elvis is dead. What harm could it do? But they don't understand. These weren't entertainment. They were prayers. You don't sell someone's prayers. You protect them. The interviewer asks if the songs will ever be heard. Maybe, Charlie says. When the world is ready. When God says it's time. But not for money. Never for money. Chapter 13, The Near Release, 1997, 20 years after Elvis's death. Lisa Marie Presley, now the owner of Graceland and her father's estate, discovers the vault. She approaches Charlie, now in his 70s, about the recordings. "Charlie," she says, "I have a right to hear my father's private music." Charlie, who has been waiting for this moment for 2 decades, leads Lisa Marie to the basement studio. He plays her 3 songs: Daddy's Little Girl, which Elvis recorded for her in 1973, Lisa Marie's Lullaby, from 1975, and Prayer for My Daughter, from Elvis's final recording session. Lisa Marie listens in stunned silence. These aren't the gospel recordings everyone talks about. These are personal messages from her father to her, set to music. When the songs end, Lisa Marie is crying. "There are 1,907 more songs in that vault," Charlie tells her. "Some for you, some for your mother, some for friends, but most of them are between your daddy and God." Lisa Marie looks at the vault, then back at Charlie. "Keep them safe," she says. "Daddy was right. Some things are too sacred to share." The vault remains sealed. Chapter 14, The Digital Age Temptation. The internet has made music sharing instant and global. Bootleggers would pay anything for access to Elvis's hidden gospel recordings. Streaming services offer unprecedented sums for exclusive content. Charlie Hodge, now the most sought-after man in Memphis, continues to protect the vault, but he's getting old, and he needs to find a successor. He chooses Jerry Sheff, Elvis's bass player, and a deeply spiritual man who understood the sacred nature of the midnight gospel sessions. "Jerry," Charlie says as he hands over the vault keys, "this isn't just about protecting Elvis's privacy. It's about protecting the sacred. These songs have power because they were never commercialized. The moment we put a price on them, they lose what makes them special." Jerry accepts the responsibility, knowing he may have to guard this secret for the rest of his life. Chapter 15, The Healing continues. 2011 present. Even though the recordings remain locked away, their influence continues to spread in mysterious ways. People who were present at Elvis's original gospel sessions share their memories. Musicians who witnessed the midnight recording sessions describe the experience to young artists. The spiritual impact of those long-hidden songs ripples through the music industry in ways no one can fully trace. John Rich, of Big and Rich, spends an evening with Charlie Hodge in 2015. Charlie doesn't play any of the hidden recordings, but he describes them in such detail that Rich is inspired to record his own deeply spiritual album. Carrie Underwood meets with Jerry Sheff in 2018. Jerry shares stories about Elvis's approach to gospel music, and Underwood later credits those conversations with changing how she approaches her own faith-based songs. Keith Urban, married to Nicole Kidman, seeks out Jerry Sheff in 2020. Jerry tells him about Elvis's philosophy, that gospel music should come from pain transformed into hope. Urban's next album reflects this philosophy in every song. The hidden recordings remain locked away, but their spiritual DNA continues to influence music. Chapter 16, The Eternal Question. Today, 47 years after Elvis's death, the vault in Graceland's basement remains sealed. 200 songs that could change how the world understands Elvis Presley, spirituality, and the power of music. Jerry Sheff, now in his 80s, continues to guard the secret. He's approached almost daily by documentarians, biographers, and music executives. The offers have reached tens of millions of dollars, but Jerry, like Charlie before him, understands something that money can't buy. The sacred must remain sacred. Those songs weren't created for fame or fortune, Jerry says in a rare interview. They were created for God. Elvis knew that the moment you commercialize the sacred, it stops being sacred. It becomes just another product. The question remains, will the world ever hear Elvis's hidden gospel empire? Jerry's answer is always the same. When God wants the world to hear them, he'll make it clear. Until then, they stay where Elvis wanted them, between him and his creator. Some argue that keeping the songs hidden is selfish, that they could bring comfort to millions of people struggling with faith, addiction, and despair. Others believe that their power lies precisely in their hiddenness, that commercializing them would destroy what makes them special. Chapter 17, The Spiritual Legacy. What we know about Elvis's hidden gospel recordings comes not from hearing them, but from the testimony of those who witnessed their creation and felt their power. These songs represent something unique in music history, art created purely for spiritual connection, without any consideration for commercial success or public approval. In our celebrity-obsessed culture, the idea of an artist creating 200 songs and choosing to keep them private seems almost impossible to understand.
But Elvis understood something that modern artists often miss. Not everything beautiful needs to be shared. Not every gift needs to be turned into a career. Not every talent needs to become a brand. His hidden gospel recordings represent pure artistry, music created solely for the joy of creation and the deepening of spiritual connection. Whether these songs will ever be heard by the general public remains uncertain, but their existence proves something important about Elvis Presley. Beneath the rhinestone suits and Vegas spectacle was a man of profound spiritual depth who understood that some treasures are too precious to spend. Conclusion: Memphis, Tennessee, Graceland. Today, in the basement of the most famous house in rock and roll, 200 songs wait in darkness, songs that could heal the broken-hearted, comfort the grieving, and restore faith to the faithless. Elvis Presley's hidden gospel empire isn't just a collection of unreleased recordings. It's a reminder that artists can create art for reasons beyond fame and money. It's proof that some beauty is meant to remain private. It's evidence that the most powerful art often comes from the most personal places. The world lost Elvis Presley on August 16, 1977. But somewhere in the darkness of a basement vault, his conversations with God continue. His prayers set to music wait patiently for whatever purpose they were truly intended to serve. Maybe they'll remain hidden forever, known only to the few guardians who have protected them for nearly half a century. Maybe someday they'll be shared with a world that desperately needs their healing power. But one thing is certain: Elvis's hidden gospel empire represents the purest expression of his soul. 200 songs that prove the king of rock and roll was, above all, a servant of the King of Kings. If this story moved you, if it changed how you think about art, faith, and the courage to keep some things sacred, I need you to do something right now. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because next week we're exploring another hidden truth about Elvis that will shock you to your core. Drop a comment and tell me, do you believe some art should remain private? Should Elvis's hidden gospel recordings stay locked away? Or does the world deserve to hear them? Share this video with someone who needs to understand that not everything beautiful needs to be commercialized. That some gifts are meant to remain between the artist and God. Because here's the truth that Elvis's hidden gospel empire teaches us: the most powerful art isn't always the art we see. Sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones that remain hidden, protected, and sacred. The music is bigger than any of us, but the stories are what keep the music alive. And sometimes the greatest story is the one we're not allowed to hear. Thank you for joining me on this journey into Elvis's secret spiritual world. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll uncover another truth that history tried to hide. Remember, some treasures are too precious to share, and maybe that's what makes them treasure. Thanks for watching.